Hello and welcome. So I'm sitting here by these gatepiers, which is a posh name for fancy gateposts really, at St Michael's and All Angels. They're the same ones that have been keeping watch over Haworth for nearly 2 centuries. These pillars were already here when the Brontes were around, and I like to imagine them hiding behind the gatepiers to watch the villagers, maybe sharing stories and making up little games. Or most probably watching Tabby march down into Main Street to get her shopping, maybe stopping to exchange just a little bit of gossip along the way. The steps themselves came a bit later, in the late 19th century, but today they're such a familiar part of the village and it's hard to imagine Main Street without them. Every step has a story, every tread has witnessed history, and together they created the literal path into Haworth's past. We're going to step back in time to explore their history, uncover the tales that these stones hold, and take a closer look at why this part of the village has stood the test of time, and why it's so important we help keep on stepping proudly into the future. Yes, there's going to be a lot of step puns coming up. So you see, I have moved location and I'm wearing something completely different. That's because I tried to film the whole video on the steps, but more and more people were coming up and down the steps and it's getting harder and harder. I had a lovely dog come over and lick me in the face at one point, and it just became more awkward for me to sit there and chat to you guys with everyone looking. So the plan was to go back later, but then it hoofed it down with rain. So new day, fresh start seems to be the theme for me at the moment. So here I am, nice and quietly sitting down with a takeaway tea to keep me going. So shall we pick up where we left off? Where was we? Where was we? Where was we? Aye, where was we? That sounds almost like Joseph, doesn't it, out of Wuthering Heights? I cannot do a Yorkshire accent. Never mind. The church you see today isn't the one the Bronte family knew. Patrick Brontë's church, often called the Bronte Church, was demolished in the late 1870s by the then curate John Wade, and his newer, fancier, bigger church went up in its place. If you want to know more about the old Bronte Church, I've made a whole video about it, so I'm going to pop a little link in the description so you can watch that in your own time. Now, the steps themselves are classed as Grade 2 listed, which in the UK means they're recognised as being of special architectural and historical interest. In plain terms, they're protected. You can't swap them, you can't modernise them, you've got to keep them the same. They have to be carefully looked after so their character and their history are preserved for future generations, which I think is really important. Interestingly, the 3 gatepiers at the front are even older than the steps. They probably date from about 1824 when Patrick Brontë was the curate here, and the new gates and pillars were erected at the churchyard entrance. At this time, all 6 Bronte children were alive, still a very young family, and I like to imagine them watching the work going on, playing around, watching the gateposts be put up, and perhaps even inventing a game about these gates being the entrance into a secret land or a new world. Back then, there wasn't a staircase at all. It was just this cobbled ramp running down to Main Street. Very dangerous. It was roughly in line with the frontages of the Black Bull. Archive photos and drawings still show it that way. Here's an old photograph of the Black Bull. If you look closely, you can see the gate piers in the original position, and instead of the staircase, there's just the slope ramp running down to the cobbles. Here is the modern day shot of the same view, and then if you put them side by side, you can really compare the past and the present. Here's another view, this time from the corner of the Black Bull. Again, you can spot the gate piers in their earlier position, tucked right into the corner before the new church and the steps were even built. And here's a rare image. This is the old Bronte church that Patrick served in, seen from inside the graveyard. If you look carefully at the corners, you can spot that same gate pier, proof of just how long they've stood here, even before the steps we know today were even thought of. When the church was built between 1879 and 1881, the gates and the stone posts were moved to their current position, and the stone stairs with its flanking walls was constructed. The cost was about £330, all raised by the church, and in today's money that's around about £46,000. I mean, that's a fair step up in investment. The Victorians weren't doing things by half. Oh no, they wanted something impressive and something grand and new. So out went the mucky, awkward slope, sounds very dangerous as well, and in came the uniform rows of carefully cut York stone slabs arranged in alternating 2s and 3s for rhythm and balance. It wasn't just about preventing slips, it was also a sign of progression. After years of poor sewage and unhealthy conditions, Haworth was more than ready for change, and these smart new steps were another step in the right direction. I mean, have you noticed the gates? There's actually 3 of them. You've got the grand main gate in the centre, a small gate on the side, and even a kissing gate to the left. The main gates were for ceremony and show, like weddings and funerals and that sort of thing. And the side gate was for practical everyday comings and goings. And the kissing gate, well, maybe it added an extra layer of security, or perhaps it was just there to stop stray sheep wandering into the graveyard. Whatever the reason, together they made the entrance functional and full of Victorian character, and truly a step above the original. Over the years, the steps have been part of daily life in Haworth. They've carried funeral processions, wedding parties, children running up and down, and visitors pausing to sit on the broad steps with an ice cream or a bag of sweets from Mrs. Beaton's. They even made it onto the big screen, stepping into cinematic history in To Walk Invisible, where you can spot Charlotte striding up them with a real determination. For almost 150 years, these steps have linked the church, the parsonage and Main Street, and they are literal and literary steps of Haworth, each one a stepping stone through history. Why did the staircase go to the pub? It needed to unwind after all those ups and downs. Yeah, I know, that's terrible. As well as a cup of tea, I am having sneaky chunks of chocolate. I do love the raisin and biscuit one at the Yorkie bar. But the thing is, you can't just eat 1 or 2 chunks because then it looks uneven. But there's an odd amount of chunks. So you end up going, oh, well, I'll have 1 more to even it up. And then before you know it, you've eaten the whole lot. So, but yeah, it's that sugar boost that I need today. I could do with a few more cups of tea. It's been a very... My watch reminding me to get a move on and to stop sitting around. Good point, watch. Time and Yorkshire weather are relentless, even on stone, and these steps have been put through their paces. The steps are now in a dangerous state, with one of the treads near the kissing gate at the top collapsing into a void beneath. The void isn't accessible at the moment, which makes repair really tricky. Look closely and you'll see that many of the treads are delaminating. Layers of stone separating as the water seeps in and freezes and of course forces them apart. Cracks appear, frost and rain widen them year after year, and old patchwork repairs, thinner flagstones cut into the larger slabs have actually sped up the decline. In this diagram you can see that step 3A and 5A, 2 of the longest, are in the worst condition, and once a long span loses its strength, collapse wouldn't be far behind. Beneath the steps lie old drains, probably Victorian pipes contemporary with the 1881 church, carrying that water down to Main Street. If those drains aren't working properly, water builds up and undermines that structure. Add the sheer weight of the daily use, visitors from around the world stepping up to the parsonage, villagers using the cut through to the car park, people attending events at the schoolroom, and it's no wonder part of the staircases are being fenced off. Without proper repair, that fencing will obviously spread until the whole staircase has to be closed. But can you imagine Haworth without the church steps? It just wouldn't feel right. It would be like Wuthering Heights without the moors, or Jane Eyre without Thornfield Hall. These steps aren't just stones, they're the heartbeat of the village, part of its story. And yes, it even allows me to march up the steps like Emily Bronte with my shawl flying out behind me as I walk to the parsonage. In my case, it's a raincoat, but hey. What do you call a row of steps in a queue? A step in line. Oh, they're not getting any better. So how do you actually save 150 years of history without turning it into a pile of rubble? Well, it's careful planning, skilled craftsmanship and a lot of village spirit. The church here in Haworth has taken the lead, working with architects, conservation officers and stone specialists to make sure that this project is done properly. Bradford Council aren't in a position to step in with money, so the church has rolled up its sleeves, rallied the villagers and found a way forward. First, the damaged areas will be temporarily fenced off and foot traffic diverted along Main Street past the old post office, turn left in front of the King's Arms pub. And this path does bring you out by the church back entrance, the one that everyone uses all the time. The collapsed and delaminated treads will be replaced with solid Yorkshire stone, either freshly quarried or reclaimed if matching stone can be found. Those steps 3A and 5A I mentioned, the longest span that's seen the worst of the wear, will get extra careful steps in repair. They won't be extended to their original length because frankly, that was part of the problem in the first place. Other treads that aren't horizontal will be reset, old joints repointed with lime mortar and the flanking walls partly taken down and rebuilt to allow for proper support for the tread foundations. Drainage beneath the steps will have to be investigated, obviously, and any repairs that were needed will be done. But with extra careful allowance for the Victorian pipes contemporary with the 1881 church, like I said. The plan also involves replacing only the sections of step where delamination has compromised structural integrity, retaining the vast majority of the original York stone where it remains level and sound. This keeps history underfoot while making the steps safe for the future. And yes, there will be a handrail, and in wet and windy weather, it's going to be a very handy handrail. Let's not forget that very close call I had when I nearly had that very unladylike slip back in the winter when it was snowing. Yeah, a handrail would have been a great idea. Every aspect is being approached with respect for the step's history and character. Careful thought is going into sourcing that stone that matches in size and appearance, resetting uneven treads and using lime mortar to ensure repairs blend in as if they've always been there. It's meticulous, it's patient work and exactly the sort of dedication Patrick Brontë himself would have appreciated. Why did the steps look nervous? It felt a little under pressure. Sorry, eating chocolate. Oh, sensitive. I didn't bring my trusty carrier bag and I've got a chilly bottom on this stone. Do you want to see my view? There's my view. And I'm sat with a lovely man called George today. I hope he doesn't mind. He's got a ladybird crawling on his grave. So he's got a little friend to talk to, as well as me, of course. It's a funny day. It rained a lot last night and woke up this morning completely dry. The sun's out. Sky is, well, you can see it for yourself. It's turned into a really nice day. I do like being in Haworth when the sun's out. But it's brought all the visitors out, hence why I'm in a quiet corner. More chocolate. Bit chilly now. Sun's gone in. Sorry. Very rude. Now, here's the bit where we all get to step up. Local generosity has already secured £20,000 thanks to Stanbury Land Trustees, Widing Weaving, Ashler Stone, and of course proceeds from village fundraising events and huge effort from people who clearly love Haworth. But around £10,000 more is needed to complete the project and get the job done. Patrick Brontë was famously proud of his church. He even complained about local women hanging washing on gravestones because he thought it would show a lack of respect. So I can imagine how proud he would be now, seeing that nearly 2 centuries later, the villagers still take such care of this place, discussing fundraising events, chipping in whatever way and whenever they can, and of course rolling up their sleeves to preserve their heritage. The locals are doing a fantastic job, and we want the rest of the world to know about it, and that's where you come in. Whether you're 10 miles away somewhere in Yorkshire or 5,000 miles away in Australia or somewhere in between, you can be part of this. Now, I know many can't travel to Haworth, so this is your chance to help the village from wherever you are in the world. Think of it as the money you would have spent on a pot of tea in a local cafe if you were to come to visit, but instead that money can go straight into the step fund. Every contribution helps, large or small, to make sure that these steps continue to welcome visitors, Bronte enthusiasts, local people, dogs and cats, you name it. There's a link in the description if you would like to donate, and I'm going to be donating too, because every time I film here, these steps are part of the magic of Haworth. I kind of feel like it's this grand entrance to the village, like ta-da, but with less singing and dancing. And if donations exceed the target, the extra won't go to waste. It will fund second-hand rails, seasonal decorations, floral planters, and ongoing maintenance because, you know, can you imagine how much it costs to keep those steps looking good? Keeping the steps safe, strong and welcoming for years to come. So let's all step up to the challenge. These stones are more than just steps, they are the steps of Haworth, linking the church, the parsonage and the cobbles that inspired some of the greatest stories in English literature. Every contribution helps write the next chapter in their story, one step at a time. What do you call it when a ladder is replaced with stairs? Climb it change. Get it? Climb it, climb it. Now, here's where my imagination runs just a little bit wild. What will they uncover when they lift the steps? I had all sorts of thoughts while I was walking the dog the other day. Could there be a hidden doorway to the Bronte vault? Okay, yeah, very unlikely, but can you imagine? Oh, it'd be such drama, wouldn't it? Perhaps a message in a bottle tucked under one of the stones left by one of the original builders telling us who he was and, you know, when he laid the stone. Maybe there's a skeleton of a missing villager last seen leaving the Black Bull, though I hope that's just my imagination running away with me. I wouldn't want that to happen. Hidden treasure, a long forgotten coin or a stash of money. Ah, yes, a stash of money that's been tucked away and completely overlooked. That would be good. And then there's the small, almost inevitable discoveries like, I don't know, lolly sticks poked through the gaps in the stone over decades of children climbing and playing. A lone shoe left behind, because have you noticed whenever you watch these things on telly, there's always a shoe found somewhere? Or a random Victorian relic just waiting to be found. I mean, every stone has a story, every layer of earth a little history. And this is the start of a new chapter for Haworth, and who knows what will emerge. Maybe it will be a completely ordinary thing, but why not let your imagination run free while the experts do their work? Picture it. Every removed tread is a window into the past, and whether it's a note from a long gone builder, a coin from a century ago, or simply a footprint of countless visitors, the steps are ready to reveal their secrets. So here's my challenge. Let's dream up the story we hope to find. And then let's sit back and see what really waits beneath those stones. Why didn't the policeman trust stairs? Because they're always up to something. When you look at the steps, it's hard not to notice that famous red telephone box, the K6 as it's called on the official report. Its bright colour really pops against that mellow stone of Haworth, and it's become an icon here in Haworth. The K6 phone box was designed by Sir Giles Gilbert Scott in 1935 to commemorate King George V's Silver Jubilee, and is now Grade 2 listed like the steps beside them. Back in the day, this little box would have been buzzing with village life, people phoning family, friends, catching up on news, and I bet it's heard more gossip than the Black Bull pub next door. Interestingly, the red phone box we see now wasn't the first phone box here. In the 1920s, the village had a K1, a much more utilitarian structure. It wasn't even red, but it was made from this precast concrete sections that kind of just slid and bolted together, and it stood on this really wide concrete base. It was basically 4 rectangular sides with a pyramid roof. Looking at a photo of the Black Bull from 1910, you can see there wasn't a phone box in place then. So the K1 Mark 236, yes, that's the official name for it, was the first generation of phone boxes to serve Haworth. This functional box was replaced in the mid-1930s by this bright traditional box that we know today. I mean, it's amazing to think how much history this little box has witnessed. Conversations, secrets, and perhaps even a few Bronte-inspired daydreams, all while standing quietly next to the steps. It's not just a phone box, it's part of Haworth's living history, just like the steps themselves. What did the staircase say when I climbed it? Nothing. It just stared at me. Alternating. Alternating. Where did that come from? Alternating. Oh, I need a swig of tea. Ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. I'm much more utilitarian. I can't say utilitarian. We often take the Haworth steps for granted, don't we? I mean, normally we're just on our way to the parsonage, assuming they're going to last forever. The gatepiers alone have seen so much over the years. Charlotte, Emily and Anne walking by with their manuscript tucked under their arms, Branwell wobbling home from the pub, and Keeper and Flossie chasing off into the village. I mean, it's amazing to think how much work Rev Oli and his team have put into planning these repairs. The surveys, the careful selection of Yorkshire stone, making sure everything blends in and respects the history. And of course, they can't start until the money's been raised. So every donation really does help keep Haworth on solid footing. Anyhow, right, I've got 3 questions for you. Number 1. What do you think? Have you ever climbed these steps and felt that Bronte spirit around you? Question number 2. What do you think they might find under the steps once they begin work? Will it be hidden treasure, message in a bottle, or maybe just a few secrets tucked away in the stone? Let me know. I'd love to hear that one. Question number 3. If you could stand on those steps with the sisters and Branwell for a moment, what would you ask them? If you had that one moment, that one question stood at the top of those steps, what would it be? I'd love to hear your answers in the comments. Your stories are great and they always help us take another step into the Bronte world. Do you get it? And don't forget, if you want to help keep these historical steps safe for future generations, there's a link in the description to donate to the Bronte Church Step Fund. I mean, even a small contribution helps. Just see it as you're stepping up to preserving a little piece of Bronte history. I promise that is the last step pun. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please do the whole likey, subscribey, hypey thing, because it really does help me out and it lets YouTube know that we want to watch more Bronte content. Have a good weekend, take care, and I will see you the Friday after next for more Bronte adventures. See you then. Bye.